Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV Velocity in Music. The best kept secret music reviews today. Really excited. We're going to jump into a band that Tom actually got me into. Circa Survive. Their fourth album, newest album, 2012, Violent Waves. Guys, Circa Survive. Tom, just take it away. Fourth album. What do you think about Circa Survive?
I think they're a really cool band. I think that if you're into rock music, alternative rock, hard rock at all, I think you should be listening to this band if you haven't, because as Jake said, this is their fourth album. They've been around for a while. And I really think that everything they put out has been quality. They're a very interesting band. Anthony Green, the vocalist, has a very unique, kind of high-pitched voice, but he can be intense too when he needs to. And I think that it provides for a really cool, unique rock listening experience. So if you haven't checked out this band, do so. And I'm starting this on a really positive note because overall, we didn't like this album very much.
Would you say that they kind of sound like Thrice meets Silversun Pickups?
I would say those two bands are worthy comparisons. But so check this band out if you haven't. But now we're going to kind of dive into some of the things that we were.
People are loving this.
Yes,
album.
they are.
And Tom and I are going to kind of go against the grain here because we have some major issues that we want to pick with it. So really guitar heavy. There's a lot of this is guitar rock. That's what it's all about. You know, they actually do a fairly good job with their songwriting. I think that they keep it fresh. They know how to present a really solid rock track that stays interesting and kind of changes throughout. It's not too boring all the time. Other than that, I really don't have a lot of positive things to say. Do you want me to just kind of go at it?
Just go at it.
Okay, first thing I noticed is there is absolutely zero dynamic contrast in this album. I blame this entirely on the production. Entirely. I think the performance, the instrumentation is good. I think that...
And even the writing. You have softer tracks like Think of Me When They Sound. You have more intense tracks like Sharp Practice. But they all kind of plateau.
It is, and it's entirely because of the production. It's like everything was just mixed at the exact same level so that the loud parts sound the exact same volume as the softer parts. And when you have that, it becomes incredibly taxing to listen to because there's no emotional buildup. It's harder for you as a listener to relate to the music, and they just completely missed the boat on this. And to give you some kind of background context, this album was recorded in 1 week and self-produced by the band. They wanted to kind of emulate the band's live sound. Tom, you've seen the band live.
That doesn't make sense to me because I've seen these guys live and they haul ass. They're really intense, and I don't get any of that intensity here. And you know, it's funny because after the first few times I listened to this album, I still didn't know that they had done this themselves. Self-released it, self-produced it, recorded it so hastily. And then when you told me that, I was like, oh man, it all makes sense now. Like the pieces just came together because you listen back to like 2010's Blue Sky Noise, and man, it is intense. And I think it matches the intensity of the songwriting, but here it just kind of flatlines.
The other big criticism I had, Tom, was the songs, you know, you mentioned that there's a couple softer tracks. Those actually stand out to me. I kind of like those, but I think it's just because I feel like those are the only songs that really provided a strong sense of variety. All the other tracks seem to sound exactly the same. I don't know if it's just the same key. I don't think it's the same song structure. I think it's just that they made the songs sound the same, and they didn't have this like fresh infusion of ideas. That's actually pretty typical when a band tries to capture their live sound. When I've seen this a lot with bands who are known for their live show. They're you know, Lonely Deer comes to mind. A totally different style of music, right? But still, it's a band that's really good at their live show, the really moving live performance. But when you put those songs to an album, every single song sounds the same, and it just gets really boring. I mean, by the end of it, you're just like, I don't care anymore. I don't care. The first part of the album is usually good, and the second part of the album usually drops off. This album definitely has that. I feel like there's a big sag in the middle.
In the middle, absolutely. Specifically tracks 5 through 7. And then while I actually like track 8, Brother Song, all right, I thought that track 9, Bird Sounds, was kind of weak too. And then I think the album ends on a decent note. Tracks 10 and 11, Blood from a Stone and I'll Find a Way. I enjoyed those tracks all right. This album also, they have a lot of little kind of strange instrumental outros to a lot of the tracks that kind of flow into the next one. I like it when bands can anticipate the album flow and try to work with that. Nice. But then again, it doesn't really fix some of the songwriting and production issues that show up earlier in the track.
And I mean, this album actually is just like a couple steps away from being really good. It just flat out sounds unfinished. It doesn't sound like they took the time to really make this a solid album. It sounds like it was just hastily released.
And real quick to jump in, sorry, to some of the production and mixing issues, we touched on those a little bit. I just want to nail down exactly what those are to me. I think the drums are way too loud. They're very much in the forefront. I think they're good drums, but they overpower everything else in the mix. The bass is pretty much non-existent. I feel like I'm listening to Metallica's "And Justice for All." Like the bass player was asleep in the car or something the whole time they were recording this. I mean, every now and then I'll hear it, and then it'll just kind of disappear. The guitars, they're good. They're intense. Like you were saying, this band is all about guitars and vocals, to me at least, when it comes to the songwriting. But the guitars are very kind of washed out, very much in the periphery of the mix. They're so far in the edge, and the drums are so much in the center that you don't really get a lot of what the guitars are doing. And then the vocals are just kind of sitting in the middle and doing what they do.
Yeah, and when you go and you listen to this album, and then you go back and you listen to Blue Sky Noise, which I actually did, the first thing that I noticed is, wow, I can hear the vocalist a lot better on Blue Sky Noise. I can hear the bass a lot more. I mean, those are two very, very important instruments in terms of dynamics. They add a ton of contrast. I mean, you could really hear the difference in a loud chorus versus a soft verse in the vocals and in the bass. And if you don't have those two components in the mix, I mean, I really feel like you're missing a huge opportunity to engage your listener in something that's more climactic than just a deadpan, one level of just forte. It's just too much of the same. And in the drums at the same time, if your drums are always the same volume, it's just gonna be a boring listen because the drums are what controls the intensity. So I mean, I feel like these guys just completely botched the production.
Yeah.
And it's such a fatal flaw. It almost makes this unlistenable. I really at times just want to turn it off. I get upset listening to this because I'm like, this is such a cool part, but I just don't care. There's no intensity there.
And what's really a shame is that I actually really like and respect the idea behind this album.
Sure.
The fact that these guys went out on their own, no label, wanted to self-release it, really care about the music, try to capture their life sound. I like all of these as an input. I just don't like the output that they created.
Right.
I love the attitude behind it. I don't like the way it ended up.
Hey man, Radiohead did the same thing, but they still brought their
A game.
Yep. They still brought in a production guy.
Oh, Nigel. Yeah. Good point. And these guys had a couple people helping them, but I think that they might have had too big a hand in it. They
didn't do a good job.
Nah, I don't think so either. So that's the big thing holding this back. At the same time, as Jake mentioned, a lot of people are loving this. The first few reviews of it I looked at 4 reviews. 3 of those 4 gave this a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
So we understand that we're kind of in the minority on this. Maybe we're just more picky about production issues, and that is more of a limiting factor to us. But I don't know.
And keep in mind, we listen to a lot of music, and we critique a lot of music. Don't listen to people who give you music reviews. They listen to more music than you do, probably. There are a few of you who are definitely exceptions to that. But I mean, that's what we do. We listen to music, we listen to it very analytically and just critique the crap out of it. So if we're giving you a negative score and you like the album, hey, no big deal. Go listen to it. It's totally fine. We're just 2 guys trying to give you some feedback of what we hear and what we think. And I just say that if you were going to pick a Circa Survive album to listen to, I would definitely go with Blue Sky Noise.
I agree.
I just went back and listened to that and just got shivers. It was so awesome. And at the time, I didn't even like it nearly as much as you did. So I can only imagine what it's like for you or other Circa Survive fans. So, guys, leave us a comment. Tell us what you thought about Violent Waves. I think that you should go to www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Notice dynamic contrast. And then you're going to go to Twitter and follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, not doing what Circa Survive did on this album. Moving music critique forward.